So I could have been one of the victims of R. Kelly. Here's the story. I was born and raised in San Diego, California. I grew up in church. My mom was a Christian. She met my stepdad. He's, to me, not really a Christian, but he went to church. And so we were all in church, and I was definitely a church kid. I was like forced to serve, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I hated it at a certain point. Like when I got to being a teenager, it was like, man, we're always doing this, cleaning the church at church on Wednesday, you know, doing all the things, every event. And so, yeah, I just didn't want to do it anymore. And then even though me and my siblings are from San Diego, California, my parents, so my mom and my dad, like my biological dad, were born and raised in Chicago, and they moved to San Diego in the 80s. And that's where me and my siblings were born. So when most of me and my siblings were older, close to being adults or teenagers, my parents, so my mom and my stepdad moved back to Chicagoland. And then, so I went to college. I went to college there, graduated college there, but we'll get to that. I'll tell you the whole story. So as I'm, you know, at college, so I went to Western Illinois University first, and then it was like, God, I felt like the Lord led me to leave Western Illinois University. I didn't know it was the Lord at the time, but I just felt like this is not for me. Like I grew up in church and I was running away from the Lord, and he was like, no, you can't run away from me. And so he just put it in me to look for a Christian university, and I found one in Chicago. And so I ended up enrolling in that school, but I had this talent for rap. Like I love rapping, I love poetry, things like that. You could probably go dig up some of my old music, but the Lord was like, had put that on my heart, was like, leave that school, find a Christian school. And going to this Christian school, it was the first time I saw people my age like lifting their hands, worshiping God, giving their all. And this is where like the Lord really orchestrates our lives. This is where I see his protection and his provision. Like I got into that school on a scholarship. I was protected from even going to that school before I was supposed to go. That's a whole other conversation. But I got into the school. And then during the summer, I ended up wanting to find people to connect with who did music in the suburbs because I didn't have a car. And so at the time, there was this thing called MySpace. Yeah, I was on MySpace. And, you know, I was on MySpace just trying to connect. And I found a producer who lived literally 5 minutes away from where my mom's house is. And so I was like, all right, cool. So I hit him up on MySpace, which, again, this is God's protection because this guy could have done anything to me, right? Like, it's just not wise. Don't do that. Ended up talking to this guy, and you know, I'm like, hey, let's meet up. Where's your studio? He's like, it's at my house in the basement. So yeah, again, the Lord protected me. And I just think that, you know, I'm surrounded by angels at all times. My mother was a prayerful woman. She always prayed and prayed for protection. So I'm just grateful for that. So I meet up with him. I'm going to call him Jason. And I meet up at Jason's house, and he has this really, you know, nice state-of-the-art studio, but it's like in a basement. He makes beats. He's at least like 2 years older than I am, you know, maybe 2 or 3. So he's not like that much older. And so, you know, he's just really excited because he's like, I just worked on this project for Rob. And I'm like, Rob? Who's Rob? He's like, oh, R. Kelly. Now, if you're from Chicago, Chicagoland, a lot of us have either met R. Kelly, know people who met R. Kelly, or we saw him walking by somewhere. Because like he was always around Chicago and Chicagoland. So even though he like toured, when he was not touring, he was like around. And definitely at the high schools, that real talk, not being funny, he really was. So anyway, he's like, yeah, do stuff for Rob. My uncle is Donnie Lyle. And I was like, that name sounds familiar. And he's like, yeah, that's the guy on the Step in the Name of Love. So if you listen to that song, at the very end of the song, R. Kelly says, and I think he said, shout out to the man on the guitar, Mr. Donnie Lyle or something like that. And so that he's his nephew, the guy who plays the guitar and does a lot of riffs on R. Kelly's music, especially from like the late 90s to the mid 2000s. This guy did a lot for him. And so this guy, Jason, was like a ghost beat maker for R. Kelly and for a lot of Chicago artists. He would make beats for them, write songs, sing the songs, and then they would go re-sing the songs or whatever. You know, I was like, I didn't know they did that. And he was like, yeah. I and I would hear some of the stuff that would come out before it came out. Like he would be working on it, and then R. Kelly would perfect it, and then, you know, he wouldn't get credit for it. So that's like a whole other conversation. But yeah, so I'm just letting you know, like this guy really did know R. Kelly. He would talk about him, and he would talk about the industry, and he would be like, if you really want to do this rap thing, you're gonna have to dress sexy. Like you're gonna have to dress way sexier than that. You're gonna have to show off your body, and you're gonna have to have sex with people. And I was like, I do not want to do that, and I'm not going to do that because I'm intelligent. I could just rap. I have enough talent that I don't need to do all that. And he's like, I'm telling you, that's how the industry is. You got to do it. And like, granted, I was very naive. I had to be like, 18, 19 years old at the time. And so when he's saying this, I'm like, this sounds like weird. Like, why would anyone do that? Like, I had never really paid attention to the music industry in that sense. Like getting the tea, because there wasn't the internet really. MySpace was like the first iteration of social media, like in that way, And so I was like, I never heard of this, right? So then ended up telling me that, and I just didn't believe it, and I would just focus on writing the songs that I was writing, trying to do it for the Lord, having like my best version of a relationship with God, which was, I don't really read my Bible, don't really pray that much, but like I'm a Christian and I won't do, the really, really bad things like do drugs, sleep with people, things like that. Like I'm just not going to do that because I am a Christian, right? But I wasn't doing too much to really have a relationship with God. I went to church. Fast forward to, a couple weeks, couple months of, spending time with this guy. He's making beats, I'm recording stuff, and he's like, yeah, he's like, man, the reason why I told you about the industry, like Rob has a bunch of women in an apartment in Chicago, and all he does is like, he pays for all their bills, he pays for their clothes, and he has them in rooms. They all get their own room, and he pays for all their food and everything, but they just, he keeps them up there. He likes keeping women. And I was like, what? Like, and it didn't even click in my mind how horrible this was. Like, probably should have recorded it, right? But he's just like, yeah, he keeps them up there, and yeah, they just stay with him. And I was like, they just stay with him. They don't do anything. He was like, sometimes they do things, for him. He just likes to keep women, and he loves just, having women kept in rooms and things like that. And I was like, what is he doing? He was like, he just got them up in there, They're taken care of, though. They have everything that they need. And I was like, that's weird, but like, it just went past my mind. Like, what we know about sex trafficking now is not what was known in 2004, 2005, 2006, around that time. So, I just went over my head. And that's crazy that I heard that. And I'm like, yeah, that's nuts. It's interesting that even though I was like trying to have my little flimsy relationship with God, like he still protected me and kept me not only from Jason doing anything, because he was really flirty. He was always, attempting to, try to get me to do something sexual with him or whatever. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, I literally just told you I'm not going to do it for music. Like, I'm not doing that. It was really flirty. You're beautiful, you're this, whatever, and we were young too. So that seems, pretty normal for college age people to even attempt to do things like that. So now I'm on MySpace one day. This is a couple weeks later, a couple months later. I'm on MySpace, and you know how MySpace is. It was like HTML. Like you have to learn HTML in order to even have a MySpace. So I end up going on there and trying to fix my profile, and all of a sudden I get a message, and it's like R. Kelly, and I'm like, R. Kelly, it's fake account. So I click on it, and I'm like, he's like, hey, what's up? How you doing? I don't know. Maybe that's how he talks. And I'm like, hello? Who is this? And he's like, it's Rob. It's me. It's Rob. How you doing? I was like, I'm good. Rob? R. Kelly? Why would R. Kelly be on here? I'm like, why would he be on here? And he's like, I'm always on here. Like, what you doing though? And I'm like, I'm working on my MySpace page, trying to build it up. And he's like, dang, you are so beautiful. Like, you're so beautiful. You're this, you're that. And I'm like, thank you. I got to get back to that. And he's like, oh, you want to help me with my MySpace page? And I'm like, this is not R. Kelly, because R. Kelly has a whole team of people who help him with marketing. There's no way that he would need me to go on his MySpace page and help him. I literally typed that. I was like, this is not R. Kelly. Just stop. It's like, it is Rob. It is Rob. Come on. Come on. You're so beautiful. Like, help me with my MySpace page. And I'm like, no, this is not R. Kelly. Bye. And like, I click off. A couple weeks later, I see Jason again, and I'm like, hey, Jason, I got a weird message from a person. They said that they were R. Kelly and they were on MySpace trying to get me to, help them with a MySpace page. And I just started laughing. And he's like, that was Rob. He told me that. He told me that he was trying to get you to help him and you wouldn't help him. I told him about you. I told him about you. He was looking for your MySpace page. And I was like, that was R. Kelly? And he was like, yes, I told you Rob is always, looking for people but it's all good. And I was like, well, I guess I missed it. Like, but it didn't really bother me. It wasn't like, oh, tell R. Kelly I want to talk to him. Literally deep within my soul was just like, oh, well, literally. And so all I have to say is like, God, even when we're not praying, other people are praying for us. And because of their prayers of like protection, of discernment, all those different things, like the Lord is faithful to answer their prayers according to his will. And I'm grateful that his will was to protect me from Jason and to protect me from R. Kelly. Like my mind wasn't even in a place to receive an invitation from R. Kelly. Like I was so focused on college and I was focused on how do I become a better Christ follower. That's all it was. That was my life at that time. And I'm grateful that the Lord put that in my life so that I had it, and my foundation was always, what do I do to please the Lord? And so I want to encourage you with this story that I could have been a victim of R. Kelly, but the Lord said no, and it came through. And I can't even say discernment because I didn't even have discernment. It was just like supernatural protection where it was like, nah, this is not even him, whatever. And imagine if I had been like, oh my gosh, hey, R. Kelly, I am so glad that you reached out to me. Let's connect. Who knows where I would be right now? And I'm sure some people in the natural, like, man, you'd probably be a millionaire. You could be like this, but I don't think so. I don't think so. The Lord had other plans. And as I've said, and I've shared my story many times, I may have lost pretty much everything, but I've gained a deeper relationship with the Lord. Talk to him all day, every day. I don't do anything without the Lord saying so. And I really mean that, like 95% of it. And so I want to encourage you to just get closer to the Lord. Ask him for supernatural discernment, extreme discernment for people, places, and situations. May folly not come to you. Thanks for watching.